Welcome back to Reliving the War, the show where we go back in time to compare old episodes of Raw and Nitro to see which show was the best on a particular night. This week we are checking out the October 2nd, 1995 episodes of Raw and Nitro. Raw was a taped show, Nitro was live. Our current scores so far are 1 win each for both shows and 1 tie. And as a reminder, we play both shows at the same time and compare matches and promos. I'm not taking into consideration time zones or regions. Whatever happened on Nitro gets compared to what happened on Raw and vice versa. Before we get started, I owe someone an apology and I have to make a correction. Last week I kinda ripped into Lex Luger for this clothesline spot. I wondered why Lex took a bump after he himself delivered the clothesline. I must have gotten around 30 to 50 comments and messages with people telling me that Meng actually headbutted Lex Luger here. Maybe by accident, maybe on purpose, who knows. I've no excuse. I totally missed that, so apologies to Lex Luger on that one. I owe him one in the future. Also, I'd like you guys to tell me in the comments if you prefer this format of going through shows week by week, or if you would prefer specific nights where key moments happened within both companies. For example, would you like me to scrap the scoring system and go straight into things like the Finger Poke of Doom or the DX Invasion of Nitro, things like that? Let me know. I don't want to keep uploading week after week if you guys have no real interest in the more standard Raw and Nitro episodes. I appreciate your feedback on this one. Right, let's not waste time. Nitro is live in Denver, Colorado, while Raw is still in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We have some big players working on both shows here. Raw will feature the likes of Bret Hart, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Razor Ramon, while Nitro will give us Ric Flair, Eddie Guerrero and Randy Savage. I have a feeling this may be a tough one to call, but let's see how we get on. Raw kicks things off with a recap of last week's show. We see Billy and Bart Gunn winning the titles once again. Vince McMahon welcomes us to the show, and our first match here is Razor Ramon once again taking on the 1-2-3 Kid. I enjoyed this match last time, so it will be interesting here to see if they can top their match from 2 weeks ago. This one told a great story for sure. Razor Ramon pretty much dominated the whole match. The Kid wanted to get some respect from Razor and he felt beating Ramon would prove his worth to the bad guy. Razor hits a huge clothesline and gets the pinfall win, but the Kid slaps Razor after the bell and for whatever reason, the match gets underway again. During the commercial break, Razor once again dominates the Kid, hitting a powerbomb when the Kid tries some aerial offense, and again, Razor gets the win. Kid still has some fight in him, he wants to go at it again, and Razor shows mercy by rolling the Kid into a small package instead of delivering the Razor's Edge as the final blow. The two shake hands, but Kid tries to get a sneaky roll up, which Razor kicks out of. The bad guy is impressed with the Kid's tenacity here, the two again shake hands, and it seems that the Kid has earned the bad guy's respect. I know the rulebook was thrown out of the window for this one, but the story inside the ring was great. Razor came off as a badass with a heart, and Kid showed everyone he would be willing to keep trying even when the odds were against him, so a good start for Raw here. While this is going on, Nitro starts things off with Ric Flair interrupting the commentary team, letting us know that the Nature Boy will take on Arn Anderson later in the evening. Our first match on Nitro is going to be the Randy Savage vs Lex Luger match that's been built up over the past few weeks, so WCW wanted to start off strong here. WCW spent around 5 minutes hyping the match up, showing us clips from last week, which did seem to drag on a bit. When Lex Luger made his entrance, Eric Bischoff said on commentary that fans can phone Mike Tenay's hotline to find out what happened on Raw so fans can stick with WCW Live. Eazy-E wasting absolutely no time here trying to keep fans with Nitro. Remember too, if Lex Luger loses this match, he has to leave WCW. The match started off with the longest lockup in wrestling history, I'm not kidding. The two men locked up and walked around the ring, eventually falling to the outside while still in the lockup position. Nitro even took a commercial break while both men were still in the lockup, and when we came back, the two men made their way to the ring. After some more pushing and slapping and another spill to the outside, we finally started a wrestling match when both men got back into the squared circle and Luger began taking control. After a little bit of back and forth and more tests of strength, the match became much more fun when Savage began taking the lead. The referee gets knocked out, Savage nails the elbow, and of course there's no 3 count, Randy Anderson is down. The Giant then makes an appearance, delivering a chokeslam to Randy Savage that allows Lex Luger to put the torture rack on the Macho Man. Savage is out cold. The referee calls for the bell and awards Lex Luger the victory. I feel this match was a bit of a letdown, especially when considering the TV time used in previous weeks to hype the bout up. The last few moments of the match, before the Giant came to the ring and when Savage began taking the lead, those moments were good, but as a complete bell-to-bell match, it didn't live up to the hype at all. I'm giving the point here to Razor and Kidd. Neither match was spectacular, but I think I was expecting more from Luger and Savage, and the bout just didn't deliver. So we have another 2 matches next. Raw is giving us Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Barry Harowitz, and WCW is going to present Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko. This should be an easy one to score, but as always, we have to give both matches a fair chance. For whatever reason, the WWF wanted people to phone in and share their opinion on the O.J. Simpson trial. No kidding, this wasn't an angle. This didn't lead to anything. Phone a number and let the WWF know if you think O.J. Simpson was guilty or not. Vince even says you must have parental supervision to call the number, and Vince also tells us we will know the result of the vote by the end of Raw. And keep in mind, one painfully obvious thing here, Raw was taped. The only way the WWF could give a live poll result is either by going live or by adding the result to the end of the show, or they could just make up a final result and include it on the tape. Anyway, let's look at the match. Barry Harowitz was going through a small push here. He got a lucky win at SummerSlam, so this match was all about Harowitz trying to get another upset victory on Raw. It's interesting seeing Triple H use a complete different moveset here. Hunter was pulling off rolling arm bars, vertical suplexes, European uppercuts. A very different Triple H here, both in gimmick and in moveset. I actually enjoyed this match. Barry Harowitz had a great flurry of offense towards the end of the bout, and it looked like he had a chance of winning, but Triple H put an end to things with the pedigree. It's interesting to see how guys have evolved over the years, and looking back here, Triple H was definitely a very different wrestler in 1995, and Harowitz was good here too. The guy never did get his fair due, and once again, any resemblance of a push was stopped here in this match. A good showing here. This one took me by surprise. Over on Nitro, it's time for Guerrero vs Malenko, the first time these two guys made an appearance on WCW's Monday night show. Disco Inferno is dancing on the entranceway before the match. Eddie Guerrero comes out telling Disco to scram. There's no time for disco dancing tonight, folks. It's good though that Disco was presented here. Remember, the guy was very new, so getting more exposure on Monday nights would mean a lot in the long run for Disco Inferno. Anyway, the match gets underway, and what can I say here? Right from the opening bell, it's a masterclass in back and forth cruiserweight action. The first real exposure to this type of ultra fast paced action on WCW Nitro here. These two knew each other so well, and everything is done with such perfect timing that it's just breathtaking to watch. You can imagine how annoying it was though to see Hulk Hogan completely interrupt the match. The camera cuts away after the opening minutes of the bout to show Hulk Hogan arriving to the arena, banging on about finding the Giant and making him pay for Fall Brawl. It's so true that WCW didn't know what they had with guys like Malenko and Guerrero. Right from their very first Nitro appearance, they were already playing second fiddle to the bigger stars of the company. Thankfully, the men in the ring didn't let up when the cameras went back to the arena. Guerrero delivered an incredible crossbody from the top rope to the outside before winning the match with a counter pin inside the ring. A great match here, it still holds up extremely well today, and the point goes straight to Monday Nitro. WCW nearly messed this up with the cutaway to Hulk Hogan, and also Hunter vs Harowitz wasn't that bad at all, but Malenko and Guerrero saved it with nothing but sheer wrestling ability. Entertaining segments here on both shows. Okay, so here's an interesting head-to-head. A Hulk Hogan promo on WCW against a WWF Tag Team match, PG-13 versus Al Brown and Sonny Rogers. This will put the promo versus match thing to test. Can Hulk Hogan deliver a promo that's better than a lower mid-card WWF match? Let's find out. PG-13 were pretty successful in the USWA, and most people will know these guys as the Robbers from the original Nation of Domination or their time in ECW. I'm familiar with their work, but I haven't been overly exposed to the tag team, so I'm interested to see how this goes down. Al Brown and Sonny Rogers were your typical WWF jobbers, by the way. Nothing more to talk about when it comes to these guys. PG-13 were the USWA Tag Team Champions here, and during the match, we had a split-screen promo where PG-13 said they were coming after the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Smoking Guns, so a little inter-promotional match was teased here for the future. Anyway, the match was okay, nothing spectacular. PG-13 pretty much dominated the whole bout while showing off their double team moves, some of which were a little rough around the edges, but still it was an okay match. Poor Sonny Rogers took most of the offense here. There was a small applause when fellow jobber Al Brown got the hot tag, but this one was as predictable as they come. PG-13 wins the match. Flipping over to Nitro, Mean Gene is ready to interview the American-made Hulk Hogan. The Hulkster, still wearing his neck brace, gets in the ring and cuts around a 30-second promo saying he will beat the Giant because a sick kid asked him to do so. I counted 9 brothers during the segment. Hogan hops out of the ring to give some high fives to the front row, but an old lady throws powder in the Hulkster's eyes, blinding Hogan in the process. The old lady starts beating up Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan with her walking stick, and then it's revealed that this ain't no old lady, it's the Taskmaster. The Giant and the Zodiac make their way to the ring to assist Kevin Sullivan, and the Giant, once again, snaps Hulk Hogan's neck in the middle of the ring, so Hogan now has 2 broken necks. The American males and the Nasty Boys try to help Hogan, but it's no good. The Taskmaster has a plan up his sleeve. Sullivan grabs Hogan and begins giving the Hulkster a shave in the middle of the ring. The classic moustache of Hulk Hogan gets taken out of action before our very eyes, and the segment ends. I don't know what to make of what I just watched here, but I was definitely more entertained than the PG-13 match over on Raw, in a weird way that I can't describe. This was goofy 1995 WCW at its finest here. I think if any other Raw match went head to head with this Hogan segment, then the WWF would have got the point. But yeah, I was laughing the whole way through this segment. Consider me entertained, and consider this another point for Nitro. We are already at our main events for the evening, which is a good sign. Both Raw and Nitro should have a decent amount of time to put on long matches. Something I've noticed with these early episodes of both shows is that matches can feel rushed, but we have an opportunity here to sit back and enjoy 2 matches that will hopefully deliver. On Nitro, we have Arn Anderson taking on Ric Flair, a rematch from their Fall Brawl 1996 bout, which was very good indeed. And on Raw, we have Bret the Hitman Hart taking on Jean-Pierre Lafitte in a rematch from In Your House 3, which was, well, it was alright. Bret Hart, though, could be the difference maker here. I've said it a few times now, but Bret Hart had an incredible ability to get good matches out of just about anyone. Jean-Pierre Lafitte isn't a bad wrestler at all, but this period of his career was definitely questionable. But let's see what happens. Let's stick with Raw then. The Hitman gets a great ovation while making his entrance. Jean-Pierre gets the upper hand early on, giving Bret a chance to show off his selling skills. When the action goes to the outside of the ring, Bret delivers a nice body slam on the steel steps. Very rarely did we see Bret using this kind of move, so yeah, bonus points for that one. Back in the ring, Lafitte is able to once again get the upper hand and the match slows down, giving the Pirate a chance to show his mat skills along with some aerial offense. The crowd stays firmly with Bret throughout the entire match though, trying to rally behind the Hitman as Bret continues to sell Jean-Pierre Lafitte's offense. Bret just can't get going. Every time he mounts some offense, Lafitte is able to fight back and keep the Hitman at bay. Jerry Lawler is having a great time watching Bret take a beating at the commentary table, but the smile is wiped off the King's face when Bret is able to make a comeback, hitting a huge superplex and locking in the sharpshooter for the victory. After the match, Jerry provokes Bret Hart. The Hitman goes to attack Lawler, but Isaac Yankem makes his way to ringside to lay out the Hitman. With Bret knocked out, Vince McMahon announces that Gorilla Monsoon has booked a steel cage match between Yankem and Hart for an upcoming episode of Raw. It's also announced that next week, Yokozuna, Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith will take on Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker and Diesel in a 6-man tag match, and Raw ends with promos from all the participants of that match. Seconds before going off the air, we see the OJ Simpson poll results. 51% think OJ didn't do it. So do you think this was a legit live poll result, or do you think the WWF already had this graphic ready? So over to Nitro then, Hart vs Lafitte was decent. I thought both men worked well, so let's see if Flair and Anderson can topple Raw's main event. This one here started off really hot. Ric Flair went straight for the knife-edge chops while Double A tried to keep things grounded. The match left the ring for a while and there was no wasted motion on the outside at all. Both men traded stiff shots and it looked like both men were really beating the hell out of each other. Anderson may have looked a little old around this time too, but keep in mind, the guy was only 37 years of age here. Ric Flair is 10 years older than Anderson, and I know that sounds hard to believe. I bring this up because Arn Anderson in 1995 was still great in the ring. It's easy to write off Anderson's last couple of professional years, but give Double A chance if you want to see some old school wrestling done right. The guy worked snug, but everything looks believable. Anyway, this match was good. I knew within the first few minutes that Nitro would be getting the win here with this one. Bret vs Lafitte was fine, but Flair vs Anderson here didn't hold back at all. Neither man got the upper hand for long periods of time, which made for a much more unpredictable bout. Flair was on point with everything he done, and Anderson came across as a tough man to beat. It was honestly, in my opinion, one of Nitro's best main events up to this point, maybe even the best. The ending though definitely hurt the bout as a whole. Brian Pillman interfered on behalf of Double A when Rick locked in the figure 4. Flair then took a beating from Pillman and Anderson, nobody came out to help the Nature Boy, and Slick Rick wins via disqualification. Still, I'm going to give this one to Nitro. Anderson and Flair went for around 8 to 10 minutes here, and the main portion of the match was better than Hart vs Lafitte. So this looks like another overall victory for Nitro, but I must say, both shows were very good this week. Before the WCW show goes off the air, Eric Bischoff announces that Nitro will have its very own steel cage match when Flair and Anderson square off once again next week. Good stuff here. It sounds like next week we'll have 2 huge main events. Okay, so it's time to add up the scores. Razor Ramon versus the 1-2-3 Kid I felt was better than the much hyped Lex Luger versus Randy Savage match, so that's a point for Raw. Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero had a great WCW Nitro debut, which would have been even better had Hulk Hogan not interrupted the action, but it was still better than Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Barry Harowitz. Speaking of Hogan, the removal of his moustache to me was strangely more entertaining than the WWF's tag match featuring PG-13. And finally, Arn Anderson and Ric Flair put on a great match in the main event, which I felt was better than Bret Hart versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Nitro wins this week with 3 points to 1, meaning our overall final scores now have Nitro in the lead with 2 victories. In the TV ratings for this week, it was a draw. Both shows brought in a 2.5. Thanks for watching Reliving the War, and remember to tell me what you thought of each show. Also, as mentioned earlier, please let me know how you'd like this series to continue. We can keep things the way they are, or we can scrap the scoring system and go straight into the more prominent Raw and Nitro episodes over the years. The series will continue, but just keep me in check in regards to how you want Reliving the War to carry on over the next few uploads. Thanks for watching.